All right, thank you, everyone. This will be session two. We have had a few higher learning students join these high school students. So for this round, what we'll do is that the first time in this round that you answer a question, we're going to first ask you to state your name, whether you're in high school or college, and what year you are and what school you go to. So my name is, I'm a graduating senior, Woodrow Wilson, or your college, etc. And you only need to do that the first time that you answer a question, okay? So we're going to pick up this round just by finishing the question that Ms. Bankston was asking, and then we'll move into a couple of more involved questions.
So my question was, it was just a follow-up to the question that was asked about, like, is it a good idea to learn about people from different backgrounds? So the question that I had was, have you actively tried to learn about someone from a different racial or ethnic background than yourself, whether it's white, black, Latino, Asian, anything like that? And how did that experience go? Do you think it was a good one, a bad one?
My name is Jordan Hancock. I'm the this is my second year at West Virginia Tech Technical Institute. But I believe that hearing from other people of diverse backgrounds allows us to be more flexible in our empathy and our sympathy as far as the systems that are set in place that we, a certain group of people may not experience those exact systems or exact pressures that these other people have. And so when you cut off the diversity of, not including others in discussions of, how can we make this world a better place, then you also cut off their, the reality of their problem, their issue at hand. And I just feel that as we share our ideas and thoughts with one another, even though we are, some of us, we haven't all been raised the same, we can still find common ground. And how is it that, if I am privileged or I sit in a privileged space and I only know of a privileged thought process, then how is it that I could also begin to remove and unwork that privilege so that we can make this world more equitable for each other, for each other's cultures or backgrounds or history.
So your experiences have been mostly positive, like with trying to learn about someone else's culture, ethnicity, race?
Oh, yeah. I've had, I oftentimes, me personally, I enjoy engaging in discussions as far as with others who don't share my same exact opinion, actually, because I feel the need to be able to view and analyze other perspectives so that I can also see where you stand and like where you come from and have a better understanding for me. So generally, typically speaking, it is a good experience trying to bring about diversity in that manner.
Ariana Burks, Woodrow Wilson High School, and I'm a rising junior. One of my best friends is a German foreign exchange student, and she's Muslim, but I didn't realize that she was Muslim because she doesn't wear a hijab and no one in her family does. And she's also very white. And I had a birthday party, and I had biscuits and gravy, and beforehand I didn't ask everyone if they could eat that or not because I thought that everyone would be able to eat it because we live in West Virginia and stuff, and most people eat stuff like that. And she couldn't eat it, and I felt so bad because I didn't realize that I wouldn't be able to tell that if someone was Muslim or not because of wearing a hijab or not. And I started to realize that I needed to be more respectful towards other people's cultures and stuff, and not just to assume another person's culture or another person's race just because of what I saw in the first place.
My name is Majeda Canada. I'm a rising junior at Woodrow Wilson High School. And when most people look at me, they just see biracial, but they don't know that I'm actually part Middle Eastern. So a few years back, we went to visit some of my Middle Eastern family members, and when they think of Middle Eastern, they usually think of like terrorist or the 9/11 attacks or whatever. So when we went to visit them, they're actually some of the nicest people I've ever met, and you wouldn't realize that just because of their cultural differences.
My name is Madison McMillian. I will be a rising sophomore at Emory and Henry College in Virginia. I would say that I've always had a fascination with different cultures. You know, in my household, my mom always taught me like to never see race. You know, race was a thing, but that's not how you know, identify someone as being different than myself. But in middle school, I remember one day, I think it was in 6th grade actually, and I didn't have any friends to sit with at lunch. And I sat down with a group of African American girls. The entire table was African American girls, and I was the only white girl that sat with them. And that became like my group of friends throughout my entire middle school career. And that was such a wonderful experience for me. Like looking back on it now, I was able to foster so much mutual respect and understanding for a different culture other than my own. And like I said, like I did not see race the entire experience, but all of my teachers collectively got together, I remember in 8th grade year, and they called my mom to have a meeting with her because they were concerned about me. And I remember my mom was very confused. She was like, you know, you have all A's, you're doing very well, you're playing basketball, you seem to be enjoying your middle school experience. And they said that they were concerned with who I was hanging around and who I'd been hanging around, that they would do what they could to move me in classes, to separate me, like so that I would sit with different people and talk to different people. And I just remember being so confused and having to talk to my mom about, you know, that is not right, and I'm not going to change, you know, who I'm sitting with or who my friends are, because I see where they're going with this, and this actually is not a problem at all. So I'd say that there was a bad experience along with that, but overall it's a very good experience, and I'm so glad that I was able to experience that.
Okay, good.
My name is Logan C. Gerald. I am pursuing graduate work at the University of Washington in Seattle. To answer that initial question first, I think it is absolutely necessary for myself as a white man to engage with and learn as much as I can about other races and cultures. Their experiences are experiences that I can never have, period. To answer the second question specifically, I've tried to learn through a few different methods, including literature, documentary, but my most valuable method of learning is just speaking to somebody. I don't think there's a way to learn more. That might be the most intimidating way, or for some people. It wasn't as much for me. But I've learned more through my interactions with people who were not like me than I could have from any book, any movie, anything like that.
Face-to-face dialogue and interaction. Very good.
Just like
Yeah.
we're doing here.
Yes. We're going to segue now into a more pointed question. What causes the most conflict between racial or ethnic groups? What causes the most conflict?
I feel like the thing that differentiates us is people don't have a common understanding of the difference in discrimination and racism. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm white and I experience racism because black people don't want to hang out with me. But no, that's not the case. White individuals can experience discrimination, but they have never experienced racism. I'm not saying that it's not possible for them in the future, but it's never happened.
I think the biggest issue is, for lack of a better word, ignorance. So perhaps these children or these adults even didn't
I'm
receive.
sorry, don't mean to interrupt. Give us your name.
Oh, my name is Faith Reed. I am a rising senior at Woodrow Wilson.
Good.
Okay, so the issue is ignorance, because these people, no matter their age, perhaps haven't been taught, whether in childhood or as they've gone into their adolescence, what these other races are, how they act. So if you're born into a system, you have a choice. You can either stay there, or you can learn from it and grow from it. And sometimes we just have a set mindset and we don't choose to learn and grow.
A lot of hate comes from people being uneducated about the ways that race and cultures affect people and minorities every single day, but also the lack of diversity in a lot of places, because you start to see a lot of hateful comments and stuff in places where people aren't used to being around people who are unwhite or unblack, and from there they don't have a chance to learn about other people's mindsets because they're around the same mindset every single day.
I believe it's the group of people we put ourselves with. Each of us, even though we may not pay attention to it, we all put ourselves in these groups of people, and we're not open to everybody. Most people aren't open to everybody. We have these little groups that we stay in, and that's what causes a lot of this. We're not open with everybody. We're not learning as much as we can to change things.
Name, give us your name.
My name is Tyler Harrison, and I'm a rising junior at Woodrow Wilson High School.
Good.
I am Ross Cly, and I'm a graduated senior from Woodrow. And I basically going to hit all the points that were previously stated, but just people not knowing whether that is their fault or they just genuinely haven't had that interaction with other races. Just like when my dad met my mom and he brought her to his hometown, Ripley, West Virginia, she was the first black person they've seen. So if you could just take a second and just educate yourself on different races and different issues, and education would really knock down that tension we have.
My name is Adriana Law. I'm a rising sophomore at Woodrow Wilson, and I feel like the biggest conflict between races is like a race or a group of people would feel like they're superior to other people, so that causes them to treat them differently, even though that they're actually not. Like, everybody's equal, but some people feel like because of the color of their skin or like the way they act, that they're superior to other races.
Did you give us your name? You did, okay.
I would say for me, from my personal opinion, I just believe that it is the infrastructure of the educational system as how they position, white children as opposed to black children or other children, other races. As I said before, the diversity and inclusion is very important as far as we learn each other's histories and backgrounds. But when we're only taught about it from a certain mindset or mind frame, that begins to seep into the consciousness of these younger kids who may not even believe these things, but they grow up learning about these things. They're being taught that, they have an advantage, that they are intellectually more capable or more superior, as I said, than other races. And so in order for us to begin to change that dilemma, we have to begin to accept the idea that maybe these systems that are in place are oppressive or are in fact harmful to other students.
How's it going, guys? I'm Bilal, graduate of Woodrow Wilson in 2012. I just graduated med school this past week. I think to make on the point that a few of us were making earlier, thanks. Thank you. To elaborate on that point, I think one of the biggest causes of tension between any two races or ethnicities of people is misunderstanding of what each race or each group of people values. And realistically, if we sit together, we actually, as human beings, we share more in common than we actually think. I can tell you from my own background, being a Muslim and being, growing up in southern West Virginia, you would think this is, and especially in the current political climate, you would kind of think that, like, I would contrast from everybody else. But realistically, when I sit down with people, and I grew up here obviously, and I sit down, I realize that like my own faith and my own values is very much in common with the people here. Like we share a lot more in common, and whether it be with white people, with black people, like I can sit down dinner with them and realize that we have some of the same values, and that itself makes people kind of overwrite what they initially thought about you. They might think, okay, first you walk in the room, they think, okay, this guy's like, they see a Middle Eastern guy or someone who looks Muslim or brown or whatever, and they think, oh, he's probably hates women. He has all these things. Like his wife's probably covered up. They probably think like, he doesn't want to talk to people who are not of his faith. But then they realize when you sit with them and talk to them that you're just like one of them. You have the same values. Like they kind of overwrite those things. I think biggest cause of this tension is, as someone was saying earlier, is realistically is the media. And also part of it is how we're grown up too, but the current media presents everything in a negative light, especially when it comes to people of other ethnicities and other races. And people tend to take on those notions, and they've never met someone of that race or of that ethnicity in their life, and then they, when it comes down to it, they actually meet someone, they realize, oh, he's just a normal person like me, then they kind of overwrite that. So that's always been my mentality, is if you just present yourself, and you're able to sit down with those people and show that you're just like them, then they end up kind of overriding their preconceived notions of you. To say that racial superiority is a topic in and of itself, I've realized more often than not, people themselves don't necessarily think of themselves as being superior. Some do, but more often than not, it's just misunderstanding of who these people are.
We're pulling a very important thread that I think we need to pull out a little bit further. Collectively, what I'm hearing from all of you as far as the source of the conflict are two things: ignorance and isolation. And we are culturally ignorant because we tend to be isolated in that we grow up, as you said, in our identity groups, and we don't learn enough about other cultures. My question is, at what point do you feel an individual can no longer excuse his or her racism because of their background? Obviously, racism is not something that you're born with. It's not genetic. No baby is born racist. It's a learned attitude and belief. So at what point would you hold an individual accountable to not any longer be able to say it was how I was raised?
Well, I just feel like the moment that you are aware of the racism at hand, you're aware of someone bringing up how they feel about racism, or if they feel that you had a racist remark towards them, and then if you would then continue to try to disempower the answer of the person that came to you asking you, or telling you, hey, what you said, I didn't like that, or that was racist what you said, and then if you begin to make up excuses for as to why that isn't racist, or how you're not racist, even though what I'm saying, that doesn't necessarily may not be relative to the topic or situation. But I just feel like if you are aware of your racism and then you continue to practice it and not change your action or thought pattern, I guess, then I think that would be when you would be able to be held responsible as far as say that this isn't because of
So
race.
once others bring it to your attention that your behavior is racist, you need to rethink your position.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that you should be able to rethink your position and really question and have an intrusive thought as to why,
Good,
what it is exactly.
good.
I think it's when you won't acknowledge that you're doing it, that you keep making blanket statements like this ethnic group does this because of stereotype, or they don't believe what I believe, so they're going someplace. And I think it's when you just you keep making blanket statements about the group of people without acknowledging that there's people in those groups that are different from the statement you're making.
When someone's put into a place where there's a lot of diversity and stuff, and they still refuse to acknowledge that everyone needs to be treated as equal and given equal opportunities, they need to be held responsible because once you're given the tools and the knowledge to go off and make your own opinions that's different from how you're raised, then it starts to become ignorance. And as the ignorance grows on, it becomes hate, and that's when you're held responsible.
I feel that the moment that you're old enough to make your own decisions, like with your life, like 7th grade probably, like 13, like when your parents back off of you and let you do what you want, I feel like you have the right to like decide if you want to be racist or if you don't. And if you don't change your ways, even if you know what you're doing is racist, then that's when you should be held responsible.
I think that whenever slight discrimination due to how you were raised turns into racism, then it becomes inexcusable. There is no need to genuinely hate a person, a race, sexual orientation, anything, just because they're different from you. I'm talking about the little 3rd grade girl who had red hair whenever everybody else had blonde hair. I'm talking about the one black kid sitting in the classroom. Anytime something becomes hatred, it's inexcusable.
Good.
I think they become responsible when they have, basically because of the lack of knowledge that they have, and that when approached with the situation of why do you act this way, they have no response. They can't explain to you as to why they think that way or why they make racial slurs as to that. Just as in, I don't know if anyone, but of Anne of Green Gables, she was seen as ugly because she had red hair and freckles. But no one really had an answer as to why they thought that or where that originated from.
I believe that there is a well-drawn and defined line that we all can have of when someone is responsible for their own actions and decisions. If we are able to hold people accountable if we are able to hold teenagers accountable for shoplifting, if we are able to hold them accountable for petty crime, we are able to hold people accountable for hate speech. This is regardless of age, because maturity is a subjective case.
Right.
Every teacher who has ever existed knows that. But regardless of your maturity as a person, you can understand when someone is being hated, and you can understand when you are bullying. When someone is ostracized and singled out and hurt, it's noticeable. When you have kindergartners talking about certain people getting bullied, when you walk into a preschool classroom, you can ask the room who they don't like, and they will give you an answer. If kids at the age of 4 years old are able to single out who is the outcast, then why are we excusing 16-year-olds for saying an N-word? Why are we saying that there are certain levels that we can't reach when we hold the same things accountable until it becomes problematic with our own views?
Good. Very good. Okay. So